Alrighty, welcome back to another video. Today we are talking about standard 7.G.6. This is the last geometry standard numerically. So let's hop right in. This has to do with volumes and surface areas. So, question one. What is the volume, a right rectangular prism or right triangular prism is shown. What is the volume in cubic inches of the prism? Okay, unfortunately, the state test does not give you the formula for volume of a triangular prism. So here's one you have to remember. Volume equals 1/2 times base times height times length. Okay? And if you remember to find the area of a triangle, the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. All you're doing is you're just multiplying the length also, because you're taking the area of this triangle right here and accounting for the fact that this triangle extends out equal to that length. Okay, so we put in our numbers. Base is 8, height is 6, length is 11, and we do our multiplication. Okay. If they allow you a calculator for this question, by all means, use the calculator. I'm a big advocate for you should always use the calculator for every calculation, even if it's 2 plus 2, because you have it, right? You don't want to lose points due to a calculation error. But 1/2 of 8, what is half of 8? Or 8 divided by 2? It's 4. This is just in case you don't have the calculator. Next, what is 4 times 6? 24. Finally, 24 times 11, which is 264. So it is 264 cubic inches. All right, let's go to question 2. A container in the shape of a rectangular prism holds 651.168 cubic inches when completely filled with water. The container has a length of 12.6 inches and a width of 15.2 inches. What is the height in inches? So this is a rectangular prism, okay? Nothing about triangles here, just rectangular. So to find the volume of a rectangular prism, it is, length times width times height. So we have the total volume, which is 651. Oh my God, the text on this one is so small. 651.168. Try to focus it again. Come on. The length is 12.6. The width is 15.2, and we don't know the height. So what we can just do is divide by 12.6, and then again by 15.2. So 651.168 divided by 12.6, and then divided again by 15.2. That gives you 3.4. So 3.4 equals height. And then what you can do, just to be sure, is you can do it in reverse. 12.6 times 15.2 times 3.4, and it gives you the original answer back. If you want to check your work, which you should, just multiply everything back together. Make sure it adds up to the original volume. All right, question 3. A cube has a surface area of 150 square inches. What is the area in square inches of one face of the cube? So let's talk about a cube. Okay. This is a cube. So surface area represents how much all of this white space on the cube takes up. Now, because this is a cube, all of these are squares, which means all the side lengths are identical. So what we need to do first is we want to think about what the area of one square is. Okay? And then we have to think about how many of these squares are on this cube. Well, there's one on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, one on the top, and one on the bottom. So a cube is made up of 6 of the squares. How do you find the area of a square? You take one of the side lengths and you give it an exponent of 2. So, with that being said, the surface area of a cube would be 6 times the side length squared. So now we know the surface area is 150. So we have 6 times the side length squared. How do we solve this equation? Well, we try to get the side, the S, by itself. How do we do that? We get rid of the 6 first. We push the 6 out the door. 6 is being multiplied to S, so we're going to divide everything by 6. You are allowed a calculator on this question, so by all means, use the calculator to do 150 divided by 6. That gives you 25. 25 equals S squared. Now, you have to get rid of an exponent. The way you get rid of squared is you take what's called the square root. Okay, a square root is an opposite of a square, or an exponent. Excuse me. Square root is an opposite of an exponent. Okay, if an exponent is, if n squared is n times n, the square root is essentially finding out what you have to multiply to get n squared. The square root of n squared is n, because you multiply n by itself to get n squared. Okay? Now, how can we do this in the calculator? There has to be a specific square root button in here, right? Let me just make sure. Yep, here it is. All right. So we need to find the square root of 25. What number do you have to multiply by itself? Oh my goodness, what happened there? Okay. What number do you have to multiply by itself to get to 25? Well, to find that, you hit this button right here, the square root button, and just put in 25. And it gives you 5. Oh my goodness, I just realized This was a situation where I didn't read the question. This is a situation where I did not read the question. Because if I would have read the question, I would have saw what is the area of one face of the cube. Meaning that as soon as we divided by 6 and we got that 25 was equal to the side squared, that was it. That was the answer. And I could go back in and I could edit this out and I could do, the whole thing again. But I'm not going to, because, A, it's useful to know what a square root is, but B, because it's showing that even I can be guilty of not reading a question. Even I can get so hyper-focused on one thing that I either go too far or I come to the wrong conclusion. This stopped as soon as we figured out that this was made up of 6 squares. And then we just divided by 6. That was it. That was all we needed to do. 150 divided by 6. 25. That was it. Read the question. If you don't know what the question is asking, you can ask for a clarification from whoever is watching the test. I don't know what the question wants. I don't know what it wants me to do. They can't help you with how to do it, but they should be able to at least tell you that it's asking for what is the area of one of the squares. All right. Let's go to question 4, now that I've wasted so much time on that question. A tank in the shape of a right rectangular prism is shown. 1 cubic meter is equivalent to 1,000 liters. This is important. How many liters of water are needed to completely fill the tank? So when you think about filling something, you're thinking volume. Okay? So we have to find the volume of the right rectangular prism. The volume is equal to length times width times height. Or in this case, it is 0.3 times 1.1 times 0.4. The length, the width, the height. So we go into our calculator, because calculators are allowed for this question. 0.3 times 1.1 times 0.4 equals 0.132. And then you look at this and you say, all right, 0.132. And you say, uh-oh, that's not one of the answers. But then you remember that you need 1,000 liters. Okay, I'm sorry. You need to figure out liters. 1 meter, 1 cubic meter is equivalent to 1,000 liters. So if you were to find out how to do that, okay, if 1 liter, oh my goodness. I apologize, I've been recording for so long today, I'm losing my way of talking. If you have 0.132 cubic meters, okay, 1 cubic meter is equivalent to 1,000 liters. How do you go from 1 to 1,000? You move the decimal place over 3 times. Okay? That's the easiest way to do it. So that becomes 1,000. So all you're going to do is you're going to move this over 3 times. That gives you 132. Because if you look at the answers, does it make sense that your answer would be over 1,000? No, because 1 cubic meter is equivalent to 1,000 liters. You don't have 1 cubic meter. You have less than 1 cubic meter. So therefore, your answer should be less than 1,000. So these should be eliminated right away. As soon as you see that your volume is less than 1, you know that it's less than 1,000 liters. It goes away. All right. Let's hit question 5. A right triangular prism with measurements in inches is shown. What is the volume? This is just, I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's just using the same formula we've already used. For a right triangular prism, that is 1/2 times base times height times length. Remember, that's just the area of a triangle with the length. So it's 1/2 of 5 times 3 times 4. Calculators allowed. So put it in, 1/2 of 5 times 3 times 4. And you get 30. All right. Let's take question 6. We got 2 questions left for this standard. 2 questions left. A right square pyramid measured in centimeters is shown. What is the total surface area of the square pyramid? So surface area is the sum of all the areas. Sum of all the areas. Okay? So we have one triangle here. We have one triangle here. We have a triangle here. We have a triangle here, okay? So there are 4 faces, one triangle for each side of this square pyramid. How many faces are there is equal to how many sides there are in the base, okay? So we have 4 triangles. All the triangles have the same base because this is a square. They're all 6. They all converge to the same point. So they all have the same height, which is 5. Okay, so you remember the area of a triangle, as we said earlier, is 1/2 base times height. So if you have 1/2 of 6 times 5, and yes, you're allowed a calculator, so we can even do that. We can go so far as to do that. 1, ABC, 2, 6, 5. You get 15. That is the area of one of the triangles. We have how many triangles? 4, because there are 4 sides to the square. So we need to do 15 times 4. 15 times 4 is 60. That is the sum of the areas of all the triangles. However, surface area also accounts for the base, because this also has an area. The square has an area of side squared. Side squared, one of the sides is 6. 6 to the second power is 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. So you're going to add that to this. 60 plus 36 is 96. And you're done. It's the 4 triangles plus the 1 square. All right, one more question. Whew. I'm ready to be done with geometry. A cube has a side length of 4 centimeters. What is the surface area in square centimeters of the cube? So, we denoted earlier that the surface area of the cube is equal to 6 times the area of one of the squares. Okay, so if it has a side length of 4, that would mean that it would have an area of 4 squared. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. Then you need to account for all 6 sides of the cube. So it is 6 times 16. 6 times 16, calculators allowed, so let's break it out. 6 times 16 is 96. And that is your answer. All right. So that is that. That is geometry done. Whew. That was a slog. But hopefully it helps you. Get ready for your state test. Remember, you don't have to, you don't have to get 100% of the test right, right? To get proficient, you only have to get half of it right at times. So just think about what areas you want to focus on and then capitalize on that, all right? But I'll be back for another video soon. Until then, thanks for watching.